As I came into the studio today thinking about what I could do for you this week, said to myself, better warm up, and I played this. And I thought, there we go, there's a lesson. This is an idea that I teased in a lesson on scale sequencing a little while back. If you haven't seen that, you might want to check that out after you watch this one. What I'm doing here is playing a sequence of triad arpeggios. I am defining the chords in this key. So as a warm-up, this is much more musical than, you know, the 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers that you may have done to death. You're going to be working with a scale, so it has this musical element to it. It sounds great. It's going to have you developing your understanding of arpeggio shapes across the strings, and it is also a great synchronization exercise for the hands. The first thing we need to do is decide upon a scale and a root note. So this can be any scale at all, major, minor, modes, whatever you're working on, you can put this into this exercise. So we're going to keep things just straightforward for today with the good old E shape major scale pattern coming out of this E shape bar chord. Okay, so open E chord, make it a bar chord, move it on up. That is your visual reference for this scale pattern. You probably know it goes like this. So it sits just right on top of that chord shape, this scale pattern, and we're going to be rooted on the note of A. So we're thinking the key of A. So how do we go about defining these triads? Well, the first thing to say is this is a limitation exercise. You do not stray, you do not go outside of this scale pattern as you do that. So what this means is sometimes we're going to find arpeggios across 2 strings, and sometimes they're going to be across 3 strings. The tonic triad, you say, from the first note of the scale is simply taking the first note, we'll set up on finger 2, then we're going to miss the 2 and play the 3, miss the 4 and then play the 5. So 1, 3, 5. That is a major arpeggio, 1, 3, 5. And that, across those 2 strings, that string pair, you can play that same shape on any other adjacent string pair. Care must be taken though between strings 3 and 2 because the shape will change. Anything that comes onto string 2 must be raised 1 fret, okay, because of that tuning difference. So there is the arpeggio upon the 1. Now what we're going to do right now is we're just going to ascend each of the other ones as this first exercise, okay. So as we move to the second scale degree, we do the same thing. We play the 2, skip the 3, play the 4, skip the 5, and play the 6. The notes of a B minor triad. If we consider B as the root, we get a 1, flat 3, 5. The note of B minor, okay? Because the 2 chord in a major key, will be a minor triad. There it is. So note for this shape, we're across 3 strings this time. We have 6, 5, and 4, those strings. And that shape can once again move to other string pairs, but care must be taken as you move this to strings 3 and 2 because the shapes begin to change. As we come then to the third note in the scale, we go 3, miss 4, play 5, miss 6, play 7, 3, 5, 7, gives us a root, flat 3, 5, a minor arpeggio, a minor triad arpeggio for the 3 chord. And that again could move to other adjacent strings. Then we come to the 4 on finger 2. Again, we have the same shape as we found on the 1 chord. We have 4, 6, 1, the notes of the scale being a root, 3, 5 of the D major chord. I consider that within the A shape. Then we move to the 5 and we have this arpeggio going in this diagonal towards the headstock, root, 3, 5 of an E major chord. Consider that within the C shape. Come to the 6th and we have again the same arpeggio that we saw from the 3, so that same shape, root, flat, 3, 5, that considering that within the D minor shape of the F sharp minor. Then we will find the infamous diminished triad upon the 7th note of the scale. So to see that we have 7, 2 and 4 from the scale. 7, 2, 4 gives us a root, flat 3, flat 5, the intervals of a diminished triad. there, and then we come to the octave of the root, 3, 5. This time the root is across the 3 strings. So going through that nice and slowly, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Now you could, developing this a little bit, continue. And we'll get into more on that a little later on. What we'll do in this first example is continue with that ascending arpeggios, the root 3, 5, root 3, 5, but as you descend the scale. So you start on the 1, and then 7, and 6, 5, oops, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So you're ending it upon the 5th of the 1 chord. So that's the first example. Now we're going to bring in the metronome here and just consider how we work with the beat. You've got 2 possibilities. Triplets would work nicely here. So 1 triplet, 2 triplet, thinking triplet 8s as you work to the beat. The alternative, which you can also try, is to do it with 8th notes. So 3 notes, but played as 8ths. It's a bit of a workout for the brain, but it's a really, really good thing to do. Last thing to consider then is the picking directions. Now I would suggest you start with this with alternate picking, okay, so strictly down, up, down, up. As I start with the metronome, I would go to 80 BPM. So we're going to do 8th notes, 1 and 2 and, picking at 80. Okay, let's put this together, here we go. And... Okay, so that's how you can work with the metronome and the alternate picking. Now you can build that tempo up to whatever speed you want really. My general advice with metronome range is 80 BPM, whether that's picking with the click or twice per click or triplets, up to 160 BPM. That's my working range for the metronome. And then as you max out at 160, you can bring it back down to 80 and pick even more notes. Example 2 is taking the similar approach, but this time you're going to descend the arpeggio. So you're going to go 5, 3, 1, 5, 3, 1, 5, 3, 1, 5, 3, 1. So a little more demanding for the brain as you do this, because you're not setting up on the root, you're setting up on the 5th. So that would be 5, 3, 1. And as you descend, you keep that same direction, descending. Then you end upon the root. I didn't mention before, but these exercises are also good for your finger rolling technique. If you don't know what finger rolls are, I did a lesson on that a little while back, and you can check that out after this one with the link in the cards or down below. So that's example 2, taking everything in the same direction from high to low, 5, 3, 1. When this gets fun is when you start alternating the directions of the arpeggios, as I did at the very beginning. So on the 1, you will ascend, you go 1, 3, 5, and then as you come to the 2 chord, then you descend 5, 3, 1. And then on the 3, 1, 3, 5, then 5, 3, 1 on the 4. Okay, so how you do that is, I'm starting with an up on the 1 chord. So I go 1, 3, 5. Now then, to descend the 2, you have to go up to the next note in the scale. Wherever you finish, you go to the next note and then descend. Up to the next note, I'm ascending. To the next note, descending. To the next note, ascending. Next note, descending. Next note, ascending. And the final note, descending. And then now we're going down the scale each time. So we're going up, but go down. Descend the scale, but we go up. Descend the scale, go down. Descend the scale, go up. Descend the scale, go down. Descend the scale and go up. And then to finish it off, the set, you could then do the opposite of that. So you start on the 1 chord with a descend, descent. You descend the 1 and then the 2 you go up like that. So let's do that just in free time first of all. So the 1 chord, descend. Then we go to the 2, ascend. 3 chord, descend. 4 chord, ascend. 5 chord, descend. 6 up. 7 down. I should have said up and down. And then at that point we go down the 7, up the 6, down the 5, up the 4, down the 3, up the 2, down the 1. Let's put a couple of those to the beat. AT, triplets, we're going to go up, down, as I did at the beginning. Okay, 3, 4. Opposite. Now for the fretting hand and the fingering choices, I would suggest that you stay within the scale pattern fingering as much as possible. But there are instances where you probably will have seen as I play the diminished, sometimes the fingers deviate from the scale pattern, and that's going to happen. There's going to be a bit of deviation from the prescribed fingerings, and that's okay, I guess, as long as you are consistent with it. Another way to develop this is with the range of the scale. You can start within the same pattern, but then look to, branch out of it and really test your knowledge of the fretboard. It's particularly true with the alternating down-up exercise. Let's try and do this without making a mistake. Here, so if we start within the scale pattern we had, we go 1, 2, 3, 4. Saying them can help you remember the shape, because I know that 4 is major, 5 is major, 6 is minor. So 5, 6, 7, 1. Okay, then I'm in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. And it can carry on 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you're just going up that way. And then you can do the same descending, all right? It is limitless how and when you make that change, and I'd encourage you to mix it up as much as possible. The other thing, of course, is you can change the scale. You can take any of the modes. Now I just default to the major because that's one I've done to death, but maybe I should test myself a little here and try a different one. Let's consider a Dorian. Let's go for an A Dorian in the same sort of position. So A Dorian, I would take it like this. Okay, so that's my scale pattern. So then doing this, I would be something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's my A Dorian doing that alternating pattern. Now the best thing to do as you work with a mode, for example, is to give yourself a pedal note or a progression underneath that gives you that harmonic context so you hear more the sound of that particular mode as you do it. So there you go, the Triad Arpeggio warm-up. I hope you found that useful. If you did, please be sure to give the video a like and do subscribe if this is your first time here, remembering as you do so to ring that bell icon not to miss any future lessons. As I mentioned at the top, there will be a tab available for members of my Patreon group going through all the exercises. You too can get exclusive bonuses and help support the channel each month for as little as $3. You can find out more about that with a link in the cards or in the video description. And for more on chords and scales and how they link up with the caged system, I have my Caged Clarity ebook or my complete guide to fretboard fluency guitar blueprint. You can find out more about both of those in my online store with the link again down below or in the cards. And while you're there, be sure to get your free copy of Fretboard Mastery, my guide to memorizing the notes of the fretboard in just a few days. Thank you very much, you practice well, and I'll see you again soon.